What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of Coop's House.
Yes, we are back this week getting ready to work on our Chevelle build. Yes, so last week we got the motor and transmission sat down in this thing, got the motor mounts cleaned up, got the transmission cross member cleaned up, and we didn't have bolts or a transmission mount.
Yeah, but this morning we ran by some stuff and got some bolts.
Yes, so today we're going to go ahead and get our transmission cross member in, we're going to get the transmission bolted down, and then we're going to get the replacement quarter panel trimmed down, fitted, and get ready to cut the driver's side quarter panel out so we can go ahead and get the new one tacked in and hopefully get started on some body work. Maybe not, we'll see.
But before we do that, we're going to go grab some lunch after the transmission.
Yes. So we're going to bolt our transmission down and then we're going to go eat some chicken. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
Starving. Alright, so transmission is sitting in the car, it's bolted to the cross member, but the cross member is not bolted inside the car because I didn't measure for bolts before I bought them, and I just assumed that the 7/16 bolts that bolt to the transmission would also fit the cross member. They're a little too big, so they won't fit through the holes in the frame or the holes in the cross member, so I'm going to have to get a couple new bolts for that. But transmission is bolted to the cross member sitting in the car, the transmission is sitting down on its own weight inside the car, so there's that much done. Gonna have to go to town and get some more bolts, but good enough for now. We can start cutting the quarter panel, but first, lunch. All right, so we've had lunch. I changed jackets because this is a little more manageable than the one I had on. So we're about to get ready to cut this quarter panel out. So I've got a few things I need to take into consideration. I'm gonna take a bunch of measurements compared to that side. Gonna mark everything out over here. First thing I'm going to do is these quarter panels come with an extra lip on them to help them be rigid so they don't really get damaged in shipping. So I'm going to have to trim that off, figure out where I want to cut the replacement panel, and then I'm going to put it up here, hold it in place with sheet metal screws, and then that way I can mark everything out. But I do want to take measurements from the back, figure out the location of the marker light, things like that. So a lot of things I want to take into consideration, a lot of things I want to measure to make sure that they match the other side. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get those measurements, transfer them over here so that I know what I've got, and then we're going to trim out the other quarter panel and get it fit up here before we cut anything out on the car. So yeah, let's measure some stuff. Alright, so I got my measurements for the marker light on the back over there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just running this piece of tape right here to give me a guide to cut out, because I'm going to cut out some here so that I have some room for the other quarter panel to sit here whenever I try to get my mark out. So I'm going to run a tape line to cut on both sides. I'm going to make sure I leave plenty of meat. I'm just basically going to take out this center section here so that I can stick the quarter panel up here, screw it in place. That way I can get my body line lined up like I want. So basically everything is going to run, for my purposes, off of the rocker panel down here, which I've already replaced. So I'll get the door adjusted out kind of where I want it, how I want it with the rocker panel, and then the quarter panel is going to be put in to line up with the door. So I want to make sure this is lined up, and then we'll work on the quarter panel. But I'm just going to mark out some lines here for us to cut, get this adjusted, get the quarter panel put up. Alright, so as you guys see, we have the big portion of the quarter panel cut out. So what we need to do now is go ahead and cut those extra lips off of the replacement quarter panel so that we can put it up here, screw it into place, figure out where we want to get it, make our marks, and then cut out the rest so that we can butt weld that. So yeah, I guess we're going to cut the new one now. Alright, so we have the quarter panel put in place with a couple of sheet metal screws. Now we have a little bit of an issue with the fitment of the wheel well. So we want the tire centered in the wheel opening, but you can see that it's actually set back toward the back side, so it's not centered and it looks a little funny. So we now have to figure out how exactly we can adjust everything, the rocker panel, the door, and the quarter panel, to be able to move everything back about 3/4 of an inch to center that, because the rear end is square in the car. I took a bunch of measurements to double check, and it's square in the car. So got to figure out how I can basically shift everything back about 3/4 of an inch to make everything line up like it's supposed to. So with that being said, I've got to make a couple of more cuts on here, and then I'll be able to slide the quarter panel back and forth, and I got to figure out how I'm going to be able to adjust the door out to make that work. So, yeah. So we have the quarter panel stuck back up here after we trimmed those tabs off, and we got a much better fit. The wheel is closer to center in the wheel well, but we do have some adjustment in the ladder bar so we can move the whole rear end forward, so we're not too worried about that at the moment. Body line's lined up great. We got everything to line up with the rocker panel and everything else. It's not show quality, perfect fit, but this has been a race car for years, so the body's all twisted, so we're not really going to be able to get it perfect, but we are close. We're within 1/8 of an inch. So I'm happy with the fit, so we're going to rock with it. So next thing for us to do, we're going to have to mark out where we have this quarter panel sitting, and we're actually going to cut out the line so that this thing will fit flush, because we're actually going to do a butt weld. We're not going to do a lap weld. So we're going to go ahead and cut the rest of this thing out to where it matches, clean up both sides, get this thing ready to weld, and we're going to get it tacked in and be ready to move on. So let's do a little more cutting with this car.
Okay.
All right, so what we're gonna use to hold the quarter panel in place while we weld it is these little doohickeys. So basically the two pieces of metal come together end to end. You slide this in between, and then you've got this rectangular piece that goes in on the back side of the metal. And then when you tighten the screw down, it holds the two pieces of metal together with a small gap so that you can start welding them together. And then once you get it welded in place, you just loosen this drops out the back, and you just slide it right out. So it makes life super easy. You don't have to hold it in place and all that stuff. You can put these in, adjust it how you want it, and then weld it. So these are great. So I'm about to put a bunch of these on this quarter panel. Alright, so we have our quarter panel held in place now with our butt weld clamps. That's what I'm going to call them because I don't really remember what the package said. But anyway, so we're going to put a few spot welds in this thing to actually go ahead and start welding it in. We're not going to fully weld it out because we do still have to replace the rear bumper filler. And so we're just going to finish out all the welding at once. But when you weld these panels in like this, you don't want to do just a continuous weld because the heat buildup will warp the panels, and then you have to do just that much more body work. So what we're going to do is just going to do a series of spot welds, and we're going to take these clamps out, and then we're pretty much going to call it a day until we come back and finish it out. But we got a decent fit, not a horrible gap that we have to fill in. It's not great all the way down, but it's not terrible. We're still learning how to get those gaps perfect because this is only the third one we've ever done. So a few of them look really good, but anyway, I'm going to quit talking. We're going to drag the welder over here, put a couple spot welds in, and get ready to call it a day on the car. So, start welding. Alright guys, so quarter panel is tacked in. I put one in each corner, down the front, down the back seam, in between each of our clamps, and then I came back and put one actually against each clamp so that whenever I remove them, it's not going to move. So that's all we're going to do on this thing for this week. Next week when we get back to it, we're going to go ahead and replace that rear bumper filler, and then we'll finish out welding everything, get the welds ground down, and we'll start doing body work. But yeah, got a lot done this week. We are right now on schedule for having this thing completed by March. So hopefully everything continues to go smoothly, and we'll be able to pull this thing off. But we appreciate you guys tuning in and watching this week. We'll be uploading our square body video this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. And then more Chevelle content coming next week. So make sure you like this video, comment, tell us what you think. We're not professionals here, so if some of you guys know a better way to go about this and want to explain it to us, feel free to comment, tell us below. We are still learning. We take criticism very well, so you know we're all about learning how to do things the right way. So anyway, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you share our videos with your friends. Hopefully they'll enjoy it. They can laugh at us just like the rest of you guys are. So anyway. Alright guys, have a Merry Christmas. We appreciate y'all, and we will see you next week.